Hi everybody. Are we live? We on this thing? Still getting used to the streaming software, but I think we are live. I wanted to do another live stream today, talk about some things in the headlines, share some thoughts about the general market, not just current market conditions, but broad thoughts. That's kind of how my head works. If you don't know me very well, you might not be aware, but my head definitely defaults to thinking at a 30,000 foot level. I always zoom way out and think a very, very not immediate here and now, more macro. But let's pull up the headlines, shall we? Give me a moment. Let me click around. Let me get this thing ready. There it is. All right. Crypto Fear and Greed Index. We are now in extreme fear, but it is not quite as extreme as it was yesterday or the day before. And last week we were at 23. We're now at 13. We were at 10. I saw it as low as 8, which frankly is the lowest I have ever personally seen it. It's crazy how low it is right now, given that, you know, currently the price is at what, 31,619 currently. Do people not remember 2 years ago? Do they not remember that we're up dramatically? Markets move with our emotions, and I gotta tell you, we are not rational, grounded creatures. We are emotional creatures. We trade and we sell and buy based on how we feel, and our feelings are all over the place. The Fear and Greed Index is a very interesting metric to look at. I don't know how this is calculated at all. I know that sentiment analysis is absolutely a thing that can be done, but it's not like there's a objective metric that tells you what this is or is not. Somebody can have a different Fear and Greed Index. It could produce a different number. What you generally see when you look at the history of this, in fact, we can do that down here. Let's look at 1 year of fear and greed. Is it's greed or it's fear? We don't spend a ton of time in the middle here. It's relatively binary. And for that reason, it's actually really interesting to look at this if you normalize the Fear and Greed Index, if you do a moving average, either exponential or simple. We don't have that here, but you can find that in other places online. A normalized, averaged over time, moving average of the Fear and Greed Index, which otherwise is way too binary. Other metrics that we can look at today, 66% of Bitcoin hasn't moved in over a year. This is an all-time high. So here we are. These are Bitcoins that have not moved in over a year, and these are all of the Bitcoin in extent. What does this say? This tells us that the hodlers have more conviction than ever. They're holding on, they're not moving, they're not selling. What does that mean broadly? If I were taking a guess, I would mean that the fundamentals case for Bitcoin has never been stronger. And we could break out at any moment. That it's kind of anybody's guess now. Break out. What does that mean? It doesn't mean we're going to go shooting up to six figures overnight. It does mean that we could start to see a steady climb into the mid 30s, high 30s, low 40s, mid 40s, right? We could over time see that start to move up. I don't think it's going to be a parabolic move right out of the gate. This is going to be a slow climb because we've had significant pullbacks over the last 8 months. And so it will take months to recover back to those higher prices. But we could see that climb begin at any moment, right? It could happen now, it could happen today. In fact, speaking of, we just had an up week. Now, if you weren't aware, we have had a first time ever 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks closing down on the price of Bitcoin, 9 in a row. That had never happened before. I think previously the record was 5 or 6, and then we had 7, and then we had 8, and then we had 9. Now in the 10th week that just closed, we are up just a little bit. It's an itty bitty little green candle, but I'll take it, you know? It's a turnaround. Let's look at some headlines, articles, media that's out there. This is from CoinDesk. Inside the environmentalist campaign to change Bitcoin's code, campaigners explain why they're convinced all it takes is support from a few powerful firms and people to change the fundamentals of Bitcoin. Okay. This environmental movement crowd think that they can change the fundamental mechanics of Bitcoin to make it more environmentally friendly. I'm going to assume that means that they want to make it more like what Ethereum is doing and going to proof of stake. I deep down disagree with every part of this. Not just the idea of it, not just that they're planning on it and that it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I also don't think that they can actually do it. They think they can get the support of a handful of powerful firms and people and pull this off. It would be riots in the street. There would be a full-on insane war. There would be a revolt. I think they're underestimating how hard-line Bitcoiners can be. We're talking religious zealotry. These are not people who are going to bargain with you. And I fall largely into this camp, right? I agree with Bitcoin maximalists probably 90%. Almost thou persuadest me to be a religiously zealous Bitcoiner. Change my mind, guys. Convince me to be a full-on Bitcoin maximalist. Give it to me. I'm like a little bit closer almost every day. I don't think that they can pull this off. The Bitcoin network is designed so that nobody can take control of it, even if you do get a handful of powerful people to support what you're doing. It's a distributed network. It's the most distributed network of any cryptocurrency out there. By a wide margin, you're not going to take it over by getting a handful of people to support you, no matter how particularly powerful they seem to be. I also think that this is a misguided effort. Kind of two thoughts there. One, its environmental aims are misguided. They're not actually going to accomplish what they purport to want to accomplish. And B, I question that that's what people actually want to accomplish with this. You have somebody like Chris Larson, the founder of XRP, Ripple, talking about this exact thing. In fact, I wonder if this article... No, it doesn't talk about it, but he was in the news quite recently for talking about this exact thing, right? He said very publicly in an interview that you could get the support of a handful of people and change the Bitcoin code so that it was much more environmentally friendly. Chris Larson, founder of Ripple. I don't believe his sincerity, right? He's saying that this is essential to save the planet, to save the earth, to save the environment. I think he's lying through his teeth. What somebody like Chris Larson actually wants is control and power and money, right? He has no real... It's not like he's just dying to save Mother Gaia, right? Planet Earth. That guy doesn't care about planet Earth. He's a fabulously wealthy man who's made his money by making power moves. And this is a power move, right? This is a move to control a powerful and growing in importance network. I question the sincerity of almost anybody here who is in a position of power and wants this kind of thing. I don't actually question the sincerity of somebody who is a, disenfranchised, low-level environmentalist, a true believer who is, eco-bricking the plastic in their house every day or week. I don't question the sincerity of that person. I think they are incorrect in some ways, in some important ways, but I think that person is a true believer. But frankly, the powerful people who are advocating for this, I think they're lying. This is not a genuine move to help the world. It's a move to gain power. This is from Reddit. A list of things to look forward to. This headline lacks the word look. They left something out. List of things to look forward to before the next Bitcoin halvening. You must accumulate now. It's true. You must accumulate now. Bipartisan crypto bill. He talks about how Cynthia Loomis in the United States Senate and Kristen Gillibrand are crafting a bill that should be helpful, useful, clarify the government's involvement and engagement with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. That's true, but that's always kind of in process. That's not new. A funny thing about Bitcoin development is it doesn't very often have like some new emergent thing that's like, oh yeah, suddenly the circumstances are radically different. Here's this brand new thing. The price action does that, right? Sometimes there's a huge sell-off, sometimes there's a huge price spike. But the actual fundamentals developments, they happen slowly. This bipartisan crypto bill is something that's been in the works for a long time and will be in the works for a long time. But clarity as it relates to the government is probably a good thing. That creates more stability, which creates more confidence from a lot of other players who want to come in and they're going to bring more money to the table. Taproot support. Taproot, if you're not familiar with it, was an upgrade to the Bitcoin network that made it possible to aggregate signatures, aggregate transactions so that they would all happen together, and it increases the bandwidth and anonymity of Bitcoin in a meaningful way. Another one is Taro Uproot. This is something that's coming largely from Lightning Labs. Now, I was at the Bitcoin conference in Miami at the beginning of April, and the CTO of Lightning Labs spoke about Taro, and I attended that session. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, team. You should go find this talk and watch. Not very much. You don't have to watch very much, because I, as a member of the audience, watching it live, couldn't understand a single thing that was being said. It was like performance art. The CTO was speaking so fast and so technically that even if I was a deeply technical developer who understood this at a code level, I don't think I would have been able to follow what he was talking about. I swear to you, go look it up. It's like performance art. He was speaking so quickly. But I did take away a couple things also mentioned here in this Reddit post. This upgrade means that you will have things like NFTs and collectibles, tokenized securities, and other elements possible to happen on top of Bitcoin. So everything that happens on Ethereum right now, that is coming to Bitcoin. I'd be lying if I said that there was momentum in this direction, right? Like everything happens on Ethereum or Ethereum clones. And the reason it happens on Ethereum's clones is because of Ethereum's fundamental weaknesses, right? The reason Polygon exists is because Ethereum gas fees make it impossible to do reasonable transactions. Vitalik himself would tell you that. Taro makes this possible on top of Bitcoin. So you've got Bitcoin layer 1, you've got the Lightning network, and Taro, I think, is either part of the Lightning network or built on top of. Point is, you're getting superstructures built on top of Bitcoin that are going to increase the functionality, which is cool. The Merge. The Merge in Ethereum, previously known as Ethereum 2.0 or whatever else they were calling it. I am dubious of the Merge, not because of deep personal knowledge of the specifics at play here, but because I've been around for years, and literally this is something that has been in the works for years and has been delayed for years. Literally, let me go back. Literally in 2017, I spoke with Justin Drake at DevCon 2017. We shared an Uber, and then we hung out quite a bit at the conference. He's a really cool guy. I like Justin, fun dude. But even then, we were talking about what at the time I think we called sharding, and then ETH 2.0, and now it's called the Merge. But this is basically the same thing 5 years later. Guys, come on. Like, the odds that they're going to pull this off smoothly, the odds that it's not going to get delayed. What this does, the only thing this does, there are a lot of people who think that this is going to be the savior of Ethereum, this is going to be the breakout moment. All this is doing is introducing further, what's the word I'm looking for? Variability? No, it's not that. This is making things less sure. That's all it is. You're doing a massive migration to a new mode of operation, to proof of stake rather than proof of work. This is introducing huge, I want to say FUD. Why can I not think of the word? It makes things way less sure. You should be less confident about how things are going to be for Ethereum during and post merge, because we don't know that that's going to just go great. Ethereans love to say that, like, the merge is coming, it's going to save us all. And it's like, do you think this massive migration is going to go off without a hitch? It's just going to be great. It's just going to be awesome. Years in the making. Yes, I know they put a lot of work into this, but it's a live network with a lot of activity on it. I am anything but bullish on the merge. It could work. It could be good. I guess I hope it works well, but I am anything but confident that this will be a great immediate development for Ethereum. SEC regulation, that will ultimately be, I suppose, a good thing because it will clarify the environment, but it will be very bad, I think, for a lot of altcoins because they won't pass the Howey test. And frankly, I probably need to do a whole video on the Howey test, not just because people need to understand it better, but I need to understand it better. The Howey test is the test applied to something to decide whether or not it is a security and should be regulated by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. The vast majority of altcoins will not pass the Howey test, but we do know that Bitcoin will. Right, Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, has basically said that Bitcoin is above the line. It should be fine. Everything else, including Ethereum, questionable. Full-blown Li-Fi, Lightning Finance. I'm going to skip that one because I got to be honest, I don't have full deep insight on that. Hyperinflation, it's unavoidable. I'm sure there is a technical definition for hyperinflation, right? It's hyperinflation if it surpasses this much annually or this much weekly or daily. Because at a hyperinflation level, you are talking about daily, weekly, monthly, right? It goes up at a much shorter duration than an annual inflation rate of 2%. You have to compress your time window down because it's rising so quickly. Hyperinflation is an inevitability eventually. We should all not underestimate how far these things can be kicked down the line. I remember having conversations with people, 8 years ago, while we were filming Life on Bitcoin, the documentary I made about Bitcoin years ago, 2013. I remember talking with people in 2013 or 2014 about hyperinflation, and us generally agreeing that hyperinflation was a foregone conclusion. It will eventually happen. There is no way for the United States to extract itself from the hole that it's dug monetarily. It might be technically feasible, but it's not politically feasible. It won't happen. There's not the political will in place for a real leader to come in and to change things. In my last broadcast, I talked about a talk that author Bruce Sterling gave in 2009 at the Recode conference, I believe. One of the things he talked about was global leadership and how we have moved and continue to move from a world of actual leaders who make difficult decisions to a world of cheerleaders, people who will make choices that position themselves inside of a popular narrative, right? They're not crafting real leadership, they're positioning themselves in a narrative. They're a cheerleader, they're not a real leader. They want to be seen and applauded. They don't want to actually change things in a meaningful way for structural good. Hyperinflation is a foregone conclusion, but don't expect it necessarily to happen tomorrow. It might happen sooner than people expect, because that's the way hyperinflation goes. It is slowly and then all at once. That's the nature of the beast, right? It happens very slowly and then suddenly. But it's anyone's guess on when the suddenly part could happen. So all you can really do, you're waiting for an avalanche, right? When does the avalanche happen? Which snowflake is going to trigger the avalanche? You don't know. I don't know. We just know that the snow is piling up in an unsustainable way. All you can do is get ready, get prepared, and continue to get prepared. And it might be years, but it could be many years, but it is unavoidable eventually. I pulled this up because I think this is an interesting headline that I agree with. Bitcoin will be a world's reserve currency. Here's why. I'll be honest, I read this and it didn't really give a strong case for why Bitcoin will be a world's reserve currency. But you do see things like how the hodlers are at an all-time high, and you have all of these developments coming. I think eventually we will see Bitcoin in the mix of things held by sovereign nations as part of their treasuries, their reserves. At a certain point, it would be very stupid of them not to do this. It's my suspicion that there are already sovereign governments that are stockpiling Bitcoin but are not publicly announcing it. They would do it in whatever covert way they could to cover their tracks and not alert anybody else. It's not in their interest to alert anybody else, right? This is a security measure in the event of their own sovereign nation, their own sovereign currencies collapse. Why would you not hold a backup if you know that your own currency is not in a strong position? And everybody knows. Everybody knows, right? Politicians, the Federal Reserve, they're all lying. They all know they're lying. They know they're not in a strong position, so what are you going to do? You're going to have a backup, and you're not going to tell anybody you have a backup because you don't want them to look at it, but there it is. Breaking from Bitcoin Archive. If you don't follow Bitcoin Archive on Twitter, I would definitely recommend following them. And they just started a YouTube channel, which I have not checked out yet because I just saw it this morning, but I definitely am interested in that. Breaking, cybersecurity firm Octagon Networks has adopted the Bitcoin standard, entire balance sheet converted into Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin payments with a discount. This is the way. This is a cool move. It's very MicroStrategy of them. I don't know how big Octagon Networks is. The challenge here is that, and I've actually seen this firsthand, I know of a company who got an investment in Bitcoin, and they had a substantial investment, and then the market turned south. They were really excited to announce it, and then the market turned south, and that investment that they got in Bitcoin was suddenly worth far less. So, yikes. Volatility presents a real problem here, right? When the Bitcoin market turned south recently, everybody was speculating on when Michael Saylor was going to get margin called, when he was going to have to sell. Now he clarified and said that we're nowhere near margin call. It would have to go down to an absurdly low level. But that's the challenge that you face here. They've converted their entire balance sheet to Bitcoin. What they haven't done is turn Bitcoin into their unit of count. That's one of the final things that has to happen for Bitcoin to become actual currency, usable money that people want to exchange and trade in. It's not a unit of account. So when the price of Bitcoin goes down, denominated in dollars, and everybody else around you is using dollars, you still have to transact in dollars. So it becomes very difficult to do this unless you have huge reserves, or like a ton of conviction, or a ton of like really good loan terms. Like, you have to have an edge here. You can't just say, I want to be all Bitcoin all the time, because the volatility can really kill you. Let's move on to altcoins. Talk about altcoins. So we're going to ignore that Tron with a $7.5 billion market cap is pretty much following Luna's footsteps. This person on the r/cryptocurrency subreddit posts about how similar Tron is to much of what Do Kwon and Terra Luna did. Tron recently launched its algorithmic stablecoin, USDD. That's actually kind of surprising to me, because I don't know, I feel like everybody should be dubious of algorithmic stablecoins right now, but I guess they're not so dubious that this hasn't happened. Justin Sun, I don't think Justin Sun is the reason that terms like shitcoin exist, right? He is the reason that term exists. He ran an ICO that raised a ton of money in 2017. He left China days before China banned ICOs. This is a guy who loves attention, loves hype, loves money, and is not really a builder in the sense of engineering, building foundational tech. It is speculated that he copied Tron's code from another project. He copied their white paper. And I'm not saying it's not good tech. It could absolutely be good tech that he stole, right? That he copied. This is not somebody you really want to follow. This is not somebody whose ecosystem or network you want to be engaged in. I've never really held Tron. Maybe I held it for like a minute in 2017. I can't remember. I was in and out of a whole bunch of cryptocurrencies in 2017 and ended up losing money on it because it was just, it was a casino. I was playing the casino. And I've done that again recently. And right now I am down in dollars and Bitcoin from playing the casino. I should learn my lesson. I would not get involved in any projects that Justin Sun is behind, that he is a huge figurehead or advocate for. If USDD is Tron's algorithmic stablecoin, one, I would be dubious of stablecoins, algorithmic stablecoins generally right now. Pretty notable failure in the recent past. But two, the fact that Justin Sun is behind this, it's a giant red flag. And apparently not everybody feels that way, because this has been so far a rather appreciating asset. More and more money has come into it. All right, let's look at some tweets. 50k ETH per week. Celsius will run out of liquid ETH in around 5 weeks. It is impossible for Celsius to honor redemptions after that without realizing massive losses due to STETH's illiquidity. Eventually, they will be forced to gate all redemptions. Not looking good. Now, I may absolutely be propagating unfounded FUD right here. Absolutely, I might, because I don't know. I don't know if this is true. I haven't dug in. I don't know the research. What I can tell you is this. I've been seeing a lot of FUD about centralized exchanges, and especially about Celsius Network. There's a lot of FUD around Celsius Network particularly. And I have historically had a positive impression of Celsius Networks, in as much as you can have a positive impression of a centralized network or centralized exchange. And it's because of Alex Mashinsky. I think Alex Mashinsky is a sincere actor who's trying to do good things in the space. He's an interesting guy. He's a knowledgeable guy. He's a capable founder. He's like an elder tech founder, right? He was a pioneer in the VoIP space, voice over IP. I think Mashinsky is a good dude who's trying to do good things. However, if you're running a centralized exchange and full transparency is against your financial interests, you don't want to run on the banks, right? You don't want people to withdraw their deposits. And if something ugly is happening behind the scenes, you're not going to be fully transparent. It's against your own it's against your best interest to do that. So I've seen certain things indicating that Mashinsky and Celsius generally are not really transparent about how things are behind the scenes, whether they're good or bad. They also had somebody who was like CFO who's being prosecuted for fraud. That's not good. Former CFO, I don't know. Point is, I see a lot of FUD about Celsius Network, and I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to. I had some money on Celsius Network until relatively recently, and I just got it all off. I withdrew everything. It was not an insubstantial amount. It was a fair amount of money that I'd been collecting interest on, and I'm just not going to keep it there anymore. Too much FUD. And frankly, I don't really believe in centralized exchanges as the best tool out there. They're convenient, and convenience, that's a real thing. But so far as protecting your assets and having security, that's not your best option, not by a long shot. Get your assets off centralized exchanges. The world would be a better place if everything were decentralized and we were all intensely educated on how to use those decentralized networks. We don't live in that world right now, so I have used a lot of centralized exchanges, including Coinbase, which, I genuinely think Coinbase is more or less a bad actor, that they will not act in the best interests of their users. But I've still used them, including recently, because it's just so convenient. Oh, am I a bad example? Should you do what I do? Maybe not with centralized exchanges. Let's together, you and I, educate ourselves on how to use decentralized exchanges, decentralized networks, and use them more effectively and more securely. Deal? Deal. Oof, 666 million and 368,000 positions of ETH shorts got smoked today. This was posted on June 5th. 3-year all-time high, according to Crypto Quant. Guys, don't take leverage positions. Don't do shorts. Don't do longs. You're going to get wiped out. I have never done those, and I'm glad I haven't. I don't intend on doing that anytime soon. I suppose you can do that with stop losses in place, but this is not this is not a game for the average pleb. You will lose. There are very sophisticated players who are going to be very good at this, and you're competing against them, and they will beat you. From Coin Mamba, I'm sharing this because I think it's funny. The only bullish narrative remaining in crypto right now is the Ethereum Merge. If that fails, everything goes down. Are you serious, guy? I mean, I don't disagree that if the merge fails, everything will go down. Top comment is, it won't go down, but it's good to FUD our bags now and do a U-turn later. Coin Mama says, I know it won't, but others doubt it. I doubt it. I'm one of those guys. I'm doubting this. It's insane to me that people say that the only bullish narrative in crypto right now is the Ethereum Merge. What is your time horizon? Do you guys only look forward to the next couple months, 2-3 months? Can you look beyond that? Michael Saylor says if you're not willing to hold Bitcoin for 4 years or more, you're not a real investor. Hold on to this for years. This stuff isn't going to happen overnight. If you're talking about days, weeks, months, you're not really investing. You're playing the casino. And fine, play the casino all day. I'm not going to object necessarily, but just be honest about what we're doing here. If you're playing the casino, play the casino. The only bullish narrative is the Ethereum Merge. Good grief. I don't know who Jackson, MacroJack21 is, but I really like this tweet of his. He says, Fiat Man has a hard time understanding Bitcoin because our world has programmed us to be short-term in our thinking. To understand Bitcoin, one needs to reorient their mindset for long-term thinking. It is not an easy process, but a necessary one. Safadina Moose helped me understand this. 100%. 100% true. I think government money issued freely according to centralized dictates, has distorted not just our economy, but our thinking. One of my favorite subreddits is Buy It for Life, r/Buy It for Life. These are products that people have bought that last for decades, generations, sometimes over a century. And we don't often have things like that anymore. Most of the things we use today are cheap, they are disposable, they're meant for a landfill. I am shocked how much garbage makes its way into my home that was destined to be garbage, that was never going to be anything else. Cheap plastic toys seem to proliferate in my kids' rooms that I don't remember buying them. It's because they get it with everything they buy. Here, have this cheap plastic toy. It will break in a matter of minutes, days, hours. Just garbage. I think fiat money proliferates garbage in our world. I'm not kidding at all. I think if we had deflationary money, our approach to the environment and to the world and to products would be very different. 2013, Bitcoin crashes to $30. 2015, Bitcoin crashes to $300. 2018, Bitcoin crashes to $3,000. 2022, Bitcoin crashes to $30,000. Notice a pattern. This is what I mean by those guys who say the only bullish narrative in crypto right now is the Ethereum Merge. Like, what is your timeline? What are you talking about? It's the only bullish narrative. Even the merge, as we previously said, is like years overdue, right? Supposedly it's going to happen in the next few months. What do you think the odds are that it gets delayed again? It's been delayed for years. And yes, there's a community hype about it right now, but fully 100% plausible. Ethereum founder Vitalik Buterin could come out and say, you know, we've been working on this, but there are some structural reasons why we want to delay the merge, but it's still coming. And the Ethereans would keep holding on tight, hoping, hope beyond hope that it's going to come soon, even if it's delayed indefinitely. We're going to see a race to accumulate Bitcoin on the nation state level, says Samson Mao. Right? Like, what is this nonsense that if the Ethereum Merge is the only bullish narrative? Like, do you think that Ethereum is going to be the asset that nation states start accumulating? Somebody like Alex Becker says that Bitcoin doesn't do anything. It's money, my guy. It's money. That's the thing that it does, and it does it better than anything else. It's the hardest money in the history of the world. And I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. The Bitcoin maximalists are asking fundamental questions that others don't ask. They're asking, what is money? What is currency? What makes something good money or good currency? And you do not see the Ethereum crowd, or certainly the altcoin crowd, asking the same questions. They just don't, right? They just declare that something is money, and voila, it is. That's not how money works. Money has to have certain qualities to actually work. And Bitcoin adheres to those qualities better than anything else. From Jason Lowry, we will be told that we got lucky that nobody could have predicted $1 million by 2030 for Bitcoin. So he is predicting $1 million Bitcoin by 2030 with this chart. Notably, you will see the years compressing along this timeline. That's because Bitcoin's growth it's kind of a, what's the curve term I'm looking for? It's diminishing return curve plotted logarithmically. So you chart this logarithmically, and the curve starts to look like a diminishing return, but it is logarithmic along the y-axis. In this chart, he's made the x-axis compress over time, so it looks like a straight line. That could happen. That could happen. I wonder how much of this happening, though, is not Bitcoin necessarily getting stronger, but the dollar failing, right? If Bitcoin's, Mike Novogratz said this at the Bitcoin Miami conference in April, that if Bitcoin gets to $1 million per Bitcoin, then that means that there's been a structural failure in the broad macro economy, and that the dollar has failed. And if the dollar has failed, we have very serious problems on our hands. I think it's naive to think that you can hole up in your cabin in the woods with your guns and food storage in Bitcoin and that you'll be fine. The rest of the world is burning, but you'll be fine. I understand that impulse. Believe me, I really do. I think it's simplistic and it doesn't actually work in practice. But he could absolutely be right. Jason Lowry in this tweet could absolutely be right. It could be that we reach $1 million Bitcoin by 2030 because look at the numbers. There they are. It makes sense. This message brought to you by Red Bull. Not really, but in a sense it is, because it's fueling me right now. Moving on. Kyle Simani. Are you familiar with Kyle Simani? Kyle Simani is the co-founder and managing partner of Multicoin Capital. I've met Kyle before, conferences in the past. He says the invest in founders methodology is both suboptimal and lazy. We invest in theses. We focus decision-making discussions almost exclusively on market structure. Founders are only relevant to the discussion in context of founder market fit. This is a hot take, my friends, because most other venture capitalists will tell you that they invest in founders, including the guys at Y Combinator, right? The most famous incubator crowd or group that there is. They invest in founders. If they see a founder that they think is in the wrong business, has started the wrong business, they will tell him or her that I think you're starting the wrong business, but I'm still going to invest as long as you're ready and willing to pivot into a better business. If you're exploring markets and you see data to suggest that there's a better way to do this and you're ready to pivot, then we will invest in you. If they see a tenacious founder that they know that a tenacious founder won't give up, they'll just keep pivoting until they find a market and a business model that work. Kyle Simani is saying that that's not his solution. He thinks it is suboptimal and lazy. I think that's very interesting. Somebody like GigaFund is a fund that invested in Elon Musk, and they will basically invest in anything that Elon Musk does because their thesis, Kyle Simani is saying, we invest in theses. Well, the flip side of that is a VC fund that will invest in a founder, and the founder is the thesis. Our thesis is that this founder will not give up. They will dedicate their life to changing the world in this particular way, doing whatever business is necessary to change the world in that way, like Elon Musk. Right? Whatever he does, that guy has proven that he is tenacious beyond all compare, and we'll just invest in whatever he does. They also invested in Lambda School, now called Bloom Tech, founded by Austin Allred and the other co-founder whose name, Caleb, I can't remember his name. Austin Allred is still at Bloom Tech. The other guy has moved on. Which is reinventing how education happens and programming education happens, right? I want to become a programmer. What do? Do I go to get a computer science degree at a university or go to Bloom Tech for a period of months and come out totally job ready to dive into the job market, the working market, and actually build things, right? It's a very different approach. If you're not familiar with Bloom Tech, I'm bullish on them. You want to look into them. They also invested in a group called Angel Studios. GigaFund did. GigaFund invested in Angel Studios, founded by the Harmon brothers. These are people that I've worked with before in the past and know fairly well. And they're dedicated to reinventing the entertainment model. They're disrupting Hollywood is their whole thing. It's like, we're going to produce media in a completely different way toward completely different ends, and we're going to do it financially sustainable fashion, but entirely different than the studio system. Hot take, Kyle. We don't invest in founders. It is suboptimal and lazy. Well, some of the best investors on earth disagree with you there, and I'm inclined to agree with them. He's not wrong that the thesis matters. I don't know. Maybe a further discussion would prove that we agree more than this tweet seems to indicate, but that's a hot take, Kyle. Speaking of disruption and investing, this is from Daniel Batten. As a technology investor, I've been looking for new technologies that could rapidly slow climate change for 22 years. In this time, I have never seen a new technology with the potential of Bitcoin mining. I've personally seen well over 100 climate tech pitches from founders and commercializing scientists. There were many great ideas, but the technology that stood out as able to immediately slow climate change was Bitcoin mining. If that seems counterintuitive, remember that truly disruptive technologies, solar, wind, the internet, Netflix, etc., always get attacked by those with something to lose from its adoption. I've documented the real story here. Okay, so this is somebody who's been investing in climate change technologies for 22 years, and he's never seen something like Bitcoin that has this great potential to change our climate impact. This is something that needs way more attention. Our understanding of environmental damage, environmental impact, how our current industries impact the environment, how Bitcoin impacts the environment, how energy production impacts the environment, all of it, our whole paradigm around that, I believe, is so fundamentally backward, right? People are talking about how Bitcoin is bad for the environment. Bitcoin has greater power than anything else to save the environment. You want to know what the real threat to the environment is? Fiat currency, government money. Backed by what? Well, let's look at the US dollar. What is the US dollar backed by? Oil, guns, blood, wars. The United States military burns more oil than any other entity on planet Earth by a very wide margin. Why is the United States military larger than the next 10 militaries combined? Because they have to support the US dollar. They can't abide the decline or collapse of the US dollar, because the entire world uses the dollar, basically. I think there's so much material here to dig into, and what I am persuaded of right out of the gate is that our understanding of the environment, fiat currency, and Bitcoin are entirely backwards, that the popular narrative around those things is utterly on its head. That Bitcoin is actually the savior of the environment, that fiat is actually the destroyer of the environment, the propagator of short-term thinking, as we said before, the creator of garbage in mass, right off the shelves, garbage in, garbage out. Seyfedin Ammous talks about this some in the Bitcoin Standard, a book that I read a while ago. And while I don't 100% agree with everything that Seyfedin says, there are fascinating ideas in there that are absolutely worth consideration. And I need to read his follow-up book, The Fiat Standard, which I think just looks at the flip side of this. What has fiat done to us in the world? All right, team. We'll close with a Michael Saylor tweet. Engineers don't diversify, they concentrate. You know, everybody says you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. That diversification is the smart way to go. I submit, and Michael Saylor seems to agree, and I believe that Peter Thiel has spoken on this as well. Diversification is what you do when you don't know what the future holds. But if you do, if you have a very clear picture about what the future will hold, and from all of the trends, macro trends at play, we should have a very clear picture. We do at this point. If you have that clear picture, diversification is not necessarily what you want to be doing. It's the opposite of what you want to be doing. If you know what the future holds, you concentrate. You put your eggs into the one basket that you know is going to work, and that's Bitcoin. Can you tell I'm a conflicted individual just by my very nature? I sound like a Bitcoin maximalist. I mostly am. I'm just not 100% there yet. I'm close. All right, team. That's what I got today. If you didn't notice, I did upload an edited, produced video today as well. That was an update on my Giddy investment, which sadly is down. Shouldn't be surprising as the entire market is down. But man, that was looking lucrative for a few weeks until it wasn't. Go check out that video. Let me know down in the comments what you think, questions you have, topics you want to discuss. I will be addressing those soon.